Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of the Mañana No Mas podcast. Noemi has been gracious enough to send me another guest. This one is Dr. Patricia Timerman. We just had a short icebreaker conversation. I know that this is going to be a great conversation. So make sure you stick with us. I've been through her website a little bit. I think we're going to uncover a couple of cool things in this chat. But with this, I'll let Dr. Timerman tell us a little bit about herself. Patricia?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Just to make a little interesting, my full name is Patricia Timerman Barbosa de Silva, but I just go by Dr. Timerman or Dr. T. My students said, "Oh my God, your name is so long. Can we just do Dr. T?" So for those who are wondering where my accent's from, I'm Brazilian. For short, I'm a psychotherapist, which means I'm a licensed mental health counselor and marriage and family therapist. And I've loved working with couples. I specialize a lot in trauma, in grief, especially suicide grief, there are different types of grief and it's a different experience altogether. Anxiety and communication. And that's where my book comes from. It's all about how do we communicate.
So, not gonna lie, when I saw that you published a book, I was like, that's a point. That's a point. She gets to come on the show, right? And then you do the therapy thing and you work with couples. Boom, there's another point. Talk to me about the process of writing a book. So, I'm a published author. I've got a couple of books out. I helped another company through my web agency build a website that helped other authors publish their books. And I'm always interested in what drove you to it, and then a little bit about the process and how you didn't fall into Great Depression and fade away from society.
This book comes from the theory that I developed, and it's a communication model called Intention, Action, Perception, IAP for short. I started working on the IAP, on developing the IAP, I want to say it was like 2015, 2016, and I started coming up with, or first understanding what is it about communication? How come we continuously get ourselves into miscommunication and cycle of just getting things lost in translation? And it started in my own relationship with my husband. And then I started noticing several patterns being with clients, with friends, kind of in the first Matrix, when you just see the grid, that's how I see communication. I'm like, okay, what are the patterns? What is going on? Okay, this is what's happening, right? That's kind of how my brain works with that, which is kind of cool. And so I started noticing that intention is internal to us. Only I know what my intention is. No one else knows unless I legitimately say it out loud. Perception is internal to you, the receiver or observer of the action itself. The only thing that's external is the action, but we fall into the idea that actions speak louder than words, which implies that every action has a universal meaning, and it does not. And so that's what I started noticing, is that our intentions would get lost in translation because each of us have our own interpretation of the meaning behind the action itself or the lack thereof. So the first chapter of the book, I actually started writing when I was going on my honeymoon with my husband.
Sounds like a great honeymoon.
Right. He got me a notebook because I said I have so many ideas. And so as we were on the plane and we were going, I started kind of writing. Just what is it? How can I put into paper the idea of the intention, action, perception so then people can have it and use it? And then I kind of stopped for a little bit. And then I want to say maybe a year ago, I talked to John DeBotch, who's another podcaster who goes by Mr. Spirituality. And I went into his podcast. It's called Relationship Revival, which is really cool. And he got me excited to start writing again. And so I did chapter 2. And then chapter 3, that happened in a friend's house in Gainesville while we were all there for celebrating the holidays. I was couldn't stop. And then last year, it just kind of came out.
That's pretty amazing. So when you say it just kind of came out, it's not like it was not like magic. It just came out. You obviously put work into it. Um,
Yes.
for me, I've noticed some patterns in people that write, and you kind of alluded to this. You get this great idea, you jump in with both feet, you start putting this thing together. Apparently, your honeymoon was the perfect time to launch this book writing practice, and so you do this, right? Bam, 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 and then you hit that plateau or that dead spot. And I see a lot of people that kind of hit that dead spot and then they have 3 chapters in a hard drive that never get looked at again, or these and their concepts. I think it's so important that if you feel inspired to write and share something, I think it's super important that you actually do, because there's that inspiration came from somewhere, right? There's
Yeah.
value in that, and there's people that need the message, right? So it's like that when you're a professor and you tell the class, ask a question no matter how stupid it is, because even if you feel stupid, there's probably other people in the room that have the same question, they just didn't ask it. Feel that way with books. I feel like you put something out, and if you finish it, there's an audience for it.
And the funny thing was, like, I wrote the book, but then what? I had no idea when we're talking about like publishing, is it self-publishing, traditional? And so I ended up doing like self-publishing. And when I sat down with, oh my God, the name is escaping me from my word publishing. She was amazing, but for some reason her name is escaping me right now, and that really sucks. But the first question she asked me is, why do you want the book to come out? Like, what's the purpose behind it? And I'm like, I really want people to know there are actionable strategies to really be able to improve your communication that we can do, like implement for ourselves. Being in, you talked about in our, icebreaker, one of the things that you do, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, I don't know if it was like consulting for like businesses or stuff like that. And one of the really cool things about the IAP is that it's not just for intimate relationships like partnerships, familial friendships, but also in the workplace, to
Yeah.
make sure, again, that we communicate in the most effective way by understanding our patterns. And so when she asked me that question, I'm like, oh, I want to have it out there. I want people to have access. It's like a mini manual that I've created. I wanted it to be short, right? Chapter 1 and 2 are just the theory. Chapter 3 are all the coping strategies. Because I am a visual and kinesthetic person, chapter 4, only all the worksheets to apply all the strategies. And that's it.
Yeah. That's and again, without making it about me, I have a whole power sports training curriculum, and I do a lot of consulting in the power sports field. I help motorcycle dealerships sell more parts and labor, basically. Well,
Okay.
what's funny is these dealers, they sign up for the training and they come and they're expecting the easy button. They're expecting there's going to be some trick I'm going to tell them, like, you can sell more fuel filters if you just blah, 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 right? Like some magic thing. And instead, we end up diving deep into communication, leadership, and the idea of the emotional deposits and withdrawals when we communicate with other people. And they always, I shouldn't say always, I'm putting words in their mouths, but it's like they get angry or they have buyer's remorse for the course when they first start, because they're like, I'm not looking for crystals and pyramids here, Kurt. I'm just trying to sell more filters, right? And I'm like, if you don't fix the internal culture of your business, if you don't change the way you communicate with your customers, you're never going to have the need to sell more business, because you're not going to have a business. And so we really focus on the communication, the leadership, and that internal culture in the business first. And then I tell them, once we restore or build that internal culture where it needs to be, then we can instill processes and things that will affect, how things are done in the bottom line. But if you don't communicate to people why you're changing something or why something is going to have a different policy or procedure, they're not going to come along with you.
I appreciate a lot that statement. By the way, the name came back, so I need to say Polly from my work publishing. I have to. Yes. So in the book, I love that you talked about deposits and withdrawals. Because like in using Gottman, right, and his emotional bank account, like when we talk about arguments between couples, like he noticed that it was every one negative argument took 5 positive interactions, not negative interaction to positive interaction, 1 to 5. So you need to put deposits into the emotional bank account before the withdrawals. And so in the book, I talk about Gottman's emotional bank account. I talk about Chapman's love languages as the currency, right? So words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, gift giving or receiving, and touch. The IAP is what I call the currency exchange. Do I know the definition of each of the deposits for each individual, right? In the workplace, for example, when you think about like touch, you may know that's not appropriate for business. But one of the things that I noticed when I was working pre-COVID, we had an office. Post-COVID, we went fully virtual. Now I do hybrid, but at one point I noticed it wasn't touch, it was proximity that my employees were wanting, right? So because we didn't have an office, what we started doing is monthly get-togethers.
Yeah.
But we needed to understand, like for me, virtual was great. Like I didn't have an issue with that, but mine and theirs are different. I am a person, for example, that it applies in my personal and my professional life. I noticed that I like to know the status of things in spite of whether there was a status change. So, for example, if I ask my husband to do something and he doesn't talk to me about it, my past assumption, I've gotten better at this, was silence equals not doing it.
Yeah.
Right? That was my understanding of silence. Whereas to him is if there's nothing new to report, I'm not reporting anything. So
Yeah.
it's not that he wasn't doing anything, he did something, but he was waiting on the other side. So I've learned to not make my assumption, but to ask. And what he's learned is even if there wasn't a change in status, when he remembers, he lets me know the status of it either way. In business with my employees, I've noticed some employees like for me to check in with them. They feel like it's a secondary reminder, like, you got me. Whereas others took it as I'm stepping on their toes, I'm micromanaging. But without a conversation about it, if I'm doing the same across the board without understanding the definitions of each deposit, what I think may be a deposit is actually a withdrawal. Did that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. It makes sense. There's a funny anecdote that goes with that to make it real for the listeners at home. When I got my first big corporate training job, it was for Ducati North America, the motorcycle company. And this guy named Austin, we are still great friends to this day, but he hired me and he brings me to the company. And my first day, they're like, here's your laptop, here's your cell phone, here's your corporate credit card, good for 25 grand a month. You go and build a training division, because Ducati didn't have an internal training division. They had contract trainers before, and I was one of the contracts. And so I was tasked with bringing all this in-house, right? And so I had to travel to Florida. I had to travel to a different part of California. I was moving my family from New Mexico to California. So there's a lot going on. And I kept sending email updates to Austin and leaving him voicemails to let him know where I was and what I was doing. Hey, I just arrived in Daytona, just to let you know I'm here, right? Hey, I checked into the hotel, everything's great. Hey, this is what happened at the classroom today. Is there anything I need to know moving forward? And he would never respond. And so about 3 weeks or a month into the job, I was back at the home office. I was done traveling. I was back at the home office and I was angry. I was really angry, right? Because my wife was in the middle of trying to move to California. We were putting a lot of things in motion on this. And I'm thinking the guy hates me. So how can I have this job where the guy hates me? And so I storm into his office and I slam the door and he turns around, he looks at me, and he's from the UK. So he talks with an accent, and I'm not going to burden people with that imitation. But he's like, what's the matter with you? You know? And I was like, you're what's the matter with me? Like, let's get something straight, buddy. And I was like, I've been sending you emails, texts, voicemails. I'm asking you questions. You never answer them. Dude, if you didn't want me in this job, why did you hire me? And he totally perplexed. He's totally confused. And he turns around and looks at me and he goes, well, Kurt, I hired you because you're the professional. You're in charge. He's like, I gave you the authority to do what you need to do. Just go and do it. He goes, out of all of the people I have to manage, you are the last person I am worried about. He's like, just go and execute, do what you need to do. Don't make me look stupid. I'm thrilled you're on the team. And I left the room like, holy crud, like this guy gave me full autonomy to do whatever I wanted in this division.
Yeah.
And and probably why we're still great friends today. He gave me the ability to implement anything I needed to do. And there was no, oh God, I hope I don't get in trouble for this. Cause it was like, even if I make a mistake, I just go to the office and go, I made a bad call. And he just go, well, better luck next time.
And it also allowed you to understand that his silence wasn't a negative. It was actually a positive. It was a vote of confidence as opposed to he's mad or dislike or whatever.
Yeah. But that IAP model, right? I had totally misunderstood his intention. He had totally misunderstood my intention. He was probably thinking, what's with this needy guy sending me all these emails? Right. But I thought, this is my corporate, trial, right? And I thought, well, this is what you do when you're in corporate. You got to answer to a boss. And instead he was like, just go be free, go do what you need to do.
But that's one thing that I think is so interesting is when we're hired somewhere, we go on a job interview, we don't often talk about how do we communicate.
Yeah.
Right? What are your responsibilities, your duties, what are the expectations, but not necessarily how do we communicate in the most effective way. Right? Now, my need for this, we are a construct of our experiences. I'm going to start from there, which is when I say that perception is internal, but it's a little bit trickier because it's not internal to me, but to the other person. So I don't know how they think or feel or interpret things.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like that. The status change thing wasn't necessarily a need for me. But when I was doing my master's in mental health, I worked at an immigration law firm, which is how I started specializing and doing trainings and composing clinical evaluation for immigration purposes, because I got to look at the legal and the psychological and was really interesting niche. But when I was working there, as he was growing, I was the legal assistant. And I would be doing a lot of different things. But I was always taught that you don't do that status, like let people know what you're doing in the middle of it. Once you're done is when you tell them.
Yeah.
And my boss was interpreting that as, well, she's not talking to me, so she's not doing anything. And without having a conversation, what was imposed was at the end of the day, you need to give me a note of all the things that you're doing, as opposed to having a conversation of how do you work? How do I work? And how can I let you know? So things that I feel like steps were missed.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. That is so
another
interesting.
example. But an example that I can give. When I worked at the 1-800-Suicide, I did the graveyard shift, right? Like 7 p.m. till 5 a.m. And I really liked the people that I worked with. But the people that were there like during the day, who didn't do the mental health, but did all the administrative stuff, their way of showing us like their appreciation for us would be oftentimes like a pizza, or once they gave us like little heroes. I would have really loved if they had asked, how would you guys want to feel, like what would lead you to feel appreciated? Because I would much prefer to not have pizza at like, I don't know, 1 in the morning or 2. I would prefer maybe something a little bit healthier. At one point, they started having like yoga areas for us, which was great. But one of the things I love about the IAP that I love is even in that the IAP currency exchange, because I have a worksheet for that, is understanding like how do my employees want to feel appreciated, right? And how do so me showing you that like I was little Thor, like how do you receive that as, oh my God, they see me as a hero, or do you receive that as like they just wanted to throw something to say it? Like, how is the other person going to receive it? So I think, again, it was a missed opportunity until it wasn't, because when they put the yoga there for us, it felt really nice, because after some heavy calls, you want to be able to.
I would have been happier with a bourbon sampler bar.
Right. Like a gift card to something, or just like, I don't know, just maybe the person actually there, the supervisor there, to say, hey guys, I really appreciate you. Like, yeah.
I remember when I ran the training division for Suzuki, I got that job right after they changed everybody's titles. And of course, I'm being hired. They don't tell me this, right? So when I get there, I have a whole team of people I'm supposed to be managing, but they're all angry. And I'm like, why is everybody angry? Like, I just started this job. Why is everybody angry? And they used to be called senior training analyst or something like that, right? And now they were just called, training representative. And because they took the name senior off of their titles, it was a small group. It was 5 people, but like 3 out of the 5 were incensed. They were just so angry that their title had been changed. And I didn't hear like the real cause of this anger for like 6 weeks. I was like, why is everybody so miserable here? And it didn't help much that the company had promised to promote one of the team members to the position that I had gotten. So it was like bad news. You're not going to be the boss. We hired this other guy. And then I show up and the dude hates me. Of course he hates me. Right. And he had his title changed and he didn't get the promotion. And then they put me in charge and don't give me any background whatsoever. They're just like, here's your team. And that took a lot of IAP to get out of.
Yeah.
I had to figure out everybody's personality traits. I had to figure out everybody's reward and love language and all of that. And with one of them, it took me almost 2 years to get them to be on my team and actually participate on the team.
But I mean, I appreciate like the putting the time, that consistency, right? Of like showing that I am here. I'm not here to be against you, to combat you, is to be with you. And that consistency, I'm assuming, has helped break the ice, for like a better terminology.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so weird because I don't know how much consulting you do from a corporate space. Because when I looked at your site, it was like a lot of couples and individual
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But just listening to you talk, I'm like, there is a whole vertical on the corporate side of the world that is just twisted and mangled and needs some help.
I mean, that it's funny because I guess my website is mostly in mental health, but I have engaged in consultation when we're talking about non-intimate relationships, and I call it like love-based and non-love-based when I'm talking about it in my book. And I love being able to go to places and do consultations, especially because they are actionable things. And there's one worksheet that I love, and I call it WACA, with awareness comes action. And it has nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with yourself. It's identifying like what is a scenario that things went wrong. What did I do? What was I expecting? What was my intention? What was the actual outcome? Knowing what I know now, what would I have done differently? Because what I notice a lot is people have the tendency to redirect their frustrations onto others, what everyone else is doing wrong. And I get it sometimes, like if we're a vessel and we are full of resentment and frustration, first we need to empty that vessel before we can like refill it, right? Maybe we do want to clean it a little bit even before we're refilling it. But the waka really requires me to think about like, what did I want and how did it go south? I appreciate it.
I'm gonna spin this. I'm gonna do like a whole 180 and spin this conversation back almost to the beginning.
Okay.
You wrote the book. You put out the book, and then by your own admission, you were like, "I didn't know what to do once I wrote the book." Right? You were like, "I put it out," and so looking back now, can you think of like what was the actual driving force to write the book? And then by your own questions, what did you expect to happen when you published the book? And what would you change?
Cool.
What would you change yourself to have a different outcome in publishing the book?
Wow. Great questions. Okay. So why did I write the book? I mean, I think the answer remains that I really wanted it to go out there. Like I truly believe in the IAP. I've used it. I live it. I want to turn it into a best practice. I want to do a study on it. I already have ideas on the additional coping strategies for the second book to come around that if I just kept on putting all the coping strategies in this one, this will never come out. And part of it was to kind of solidify, like having the book out was the tangible thing to the abstract theory that I've developed in a way. What would I do differently? I don't know. I think the part that I would probably talk about doing it differently would have to be maybe the marketing. Like I love going to podcasts and talking, maybe having done that before the book was coming out,
Yeah.
as opposed to like after the book has come out. But I really love the fact that it's out there. I want people to be able to have it. And that's my main thing.
Yeah. It's so we skipped over the expectations. Like, what were you expecting when you launched the book?
Oh, no, I actually don't know. I have to think about that.
Yeah.
What was I
It's
expecting?
because I'll tell you firsthand for me, when I published my first book, it was on the automotive service industry. It was in 2007. And I didn't have these altruistic dreams you had. It was sharing the information. For me, it was a purge. I couldn't sleep at night. I hated that business and I was really good at it. And I kept feeling like, is this what God made me to do? Because I'm good at it. I have a talent for it, but I hate it at the same time. And
Mhm.
so I wrote this book to kind of exercise my brain. That was it. And it was a short book, like 100 pages. Boom, like it's done, right? I was like, finally, I can sleep. And I self-published it, and I had no idea it was going to sell. I assumed it wasn't going to sell, and then people started to buy it. And so then I had to formulate, well, what would be my expectation if people bought this? And I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was like, I don't even know what to expect yet. And then Ducati bought the book, reached out to me and said, could you write us a training program? And that was the start of a whole different pathway in my life.
Wow, that's awesome. I know you never know where things are gonna take. I mean, I never thought I would be in this field. When I was at NYU, I was pre-med,
I almost went there.
and I mean, I have wonderful friends and great experiences, but the like pre-med was my main thing. Like you get a major just because you needed a major. And I did intro to poli-sci and intro to psych. And I said no to psych. And my bachelor's is in poli-sci. And look at what I do today for a living. And I love what I do. I never thought my life would have taken this detour, I guess. But it's exciting. I don't know. I guess my expectation, my set one now, is to be able to speak more on it. Like really, my Oscars is when I do my TED talk on this. And I really want to construct a well thought out, again, best practice and be able to advocate because it really does work.
I'm going to give you credit for that because I think that it does. Um, if you had to like package this, so let's say you have the book and then you start doing the talks and everything's going great. Like, what's the next step? Are you going to have like curriculum, courses, follow-up books? Do you have a follow-up book in mind?
I do. It's funny that you say that. So I just need to sit down and do it. But the two things that you've identified that I'm working on, one is developing the courses for it, which would be both for the therapist as well as for individuals and corporate, right? Because I can kind of talk about all of them in one, but I am working on the courses. I have for the professionals out there, I have a credit education units that, as mental health counselors, that we kind of need that every so many years. Um, so I'm working on that. And I am working on, I started writing my ideas on the second book because the interesting thing is, so the IAP was birthed from my relationship with my husband. But then I started conversing with other people, and there's a really good friend of mine that she and I, if not for the IAP, I don't know how we would be such amazing friends because we're kind of like family because we've become so close, but we see the world so differently. Like, when you're talking about your experience with Austin,
Yeah.
that like when you came to him and you said everything that you said, and he's like, what? Like, he never fathomed that you saw his behavior in that. Yes, with the two of us, it's very similar, right? There are things that sometimes would take it in a way that I'm like, didn't think about that at all, or vice versa. Like the silliest thing that I can, well, not silly, but we started just talking about different concepts. I think I may have shared this in a podcast when I was talking to somebody, but it was the word respect, right? For me growing up, so my parents got divorced. I was 3. My sister was 8. My brother was 6. So my sister kind of like took over, she was parentified. She was took over taking care of us. So all of the diplomacy or stuff like that you learn with your parents growing up, like with us, we're just very direct, especially with each other. And I always learned that being respectful is always telling you the truth. If you cook something for me that I did not like and I tell you that I liked it, I'm being disrespectful because I'm not telling you the truth. I can say, I really appreciate you cooking for me. This is not my cup of tea. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
For my friend, she grew up learning that making other people feel uncomfortable or being rude is disrespectful. So if you cooked for her and she did not like it, she would still say, "Oh my God, this is so delicious." And that's being respectful. The same word means such like different things to each of us. So when I'm using my version onto her, she's like, "What?" So here I am being blunt about my answers of what I like and what I don't like. She's like, "What is wrong with you?" Right? And then vice versa. When I learned that she actually didn't like something she had told me that she liked, and I'm like, why? So we started learning that just words that we use from because of our backgrounds, because of how we grew up and all the different things that construct who we are, we were misunderstanding each other.
Yeah.
So through her and through our relationship, and I started seeing this across other areas, I started working on other things. And there's actually a copy strategy that I told her she needs to co-author with me. We call it the post conversation. So the post conversation that has not come out yet, but it will in the next book, is when, let's say that you and I have a fight or have an argument or a disagreement. The post conversation can only happen. There are rules to it. And those are the things that I've had to identify, right, in creating that's why when I tell you, see things like the Matrix, it's really cool. Yeah, I can only go into a post conversation when I am not ready to tell you my side of the argument, but when I'm ready to hear, how did you see the experience? Right. So because I'm a visual person, this is my visualization. It's like I jump into your cart and we go through the roller coaster of your experience. And then once we get to the end of it, we all jump into my cart and we go through the roller coaster of my experience. If I go into the post conversation wanting you to see where I'm coming from, I'm not ready for it. So it has to come from a place of curiosity. And what we've noticed is not only now we understand each other a little bit more, but you know what, how you talked a little bit about deposits and withdrawals?
Yeah.
I noticed that sometimes we get a refund of that withdrawal because I understand what your intention was, and it was not as maleficent as I believed it to be, right? So you may even get a deposit, sometimes no, but a little bit of a refund happens. And then from there, we get to identify if the same thing happened again, what we do differently. So then we have the preamble, we have code words. I have so many strategies from the IAP that we get to apply so that next time we do something differently.
Nice. Now, I just want to ask your opinion on this because I work in technology quite a bit. I make websites. I make e-learning websites for people. I help people make their courses a reality.
Oh,
And so when we are working with people in a digital space, the communication becomes that much more awkward. And so when I think about what you're doing and how you're helping people better their communication styles and techniques, I'm thinking individuals, couples, friends, and corporate spaces. What's your interpretation of like texting, email, Slack, Basecamp, like all these programs that are meant to make us more efficient, but I feel like they're actually tearing us apart?
I think it's In the 1-800 suicide, it was via phone, right? So the entire visualization of the other person, it's not there. So we cannot tell what your body language is like. At one point, we started doing a chat, which also took the tone of voice out, right? So when we are trying to communicate, we oftentimes via text, like we create all, like LOL instead of laughing out loud to make it more easy and efficient. But sometimes efficiency can come out as rudeness, right? The more distilled the message is, if I don't know who you are and I get a very distilled message from you, I may not I may take it with a negative intonation. Like I've received people telling me that like I am intimidating via message. So I became the queen of emojis because I'll say thank you or oh, thank you. And they'll get thank you. Right? Especially when it was like a supervisee or there's like a hierarchical difference there.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us to know like the preamble, one of the IAP code, one of the IAP strategies that I have, there are two functions. Function number one is what I tell you what I need from you prior to a conversation, right? So if I message to you, hey, I'm just venting ideas, don't disrupt, just like get them, right? So like boom, 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 boom. Like I'm not thinking of how I'm writing, but at least you know what you're receiving. Don't worry about trying to figure out intonations. Versus the secondary is when I tell you the intention of what I'm trying to say before saying it, because I am bound to use wrong word choices. Now, there's a secondary thing there. I have a family member that he and I have very different political views. So whenever we message, I always make sure that I do a voice message because I want my intonation. I want to have control of my intonation. Right. So I have the rule of 3 interpretations, which was the first strategy I ever created. And the rule of 3 interpretations is I know one fact. He never responded to any of the messages that I sent saying all the things that I was doing. My immediate assumption is he's pissed at me because he's not answering. His silence equals, right? Anger. I ask that you identify 2 other possibilities. If we go to worst case scenario or taking things personal for balance sake, best case scenario or taking things very away from you, and then a likely scenario. When it comes to texting messages, I talk about, and I even added in the book, the rule of 3 intonations. I had a client once that she read a message from an ex-boyfriend, and there was like the neck, going around, stopping every 5 words to give me context and super pissed off. And I mean, he wrote her a novel. After she read it the first time, I asked her to read it again, but without the attitude. Just read, don't pause to explain anything. And then the second time around, I asked, what was his intention? What was the message he was trying to send you? The first one was very negative, was his being antagonistic. The second one was, oh, he's hurting. Right? So being able to read with different intonation. If I'm mad, I'm more likely to read a text message from a pissed off point of view.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan. I'm in the world where everybody wants to Slack all the time.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't need to be on 12 different Slack channels, but I am because that's where business is. And sometimes you see something, and for me, kind of like reading an X feed, I'll just be like, don't respond. Sometimes I think it's about like silence is golden. It's not even worth a response. And then you'll find out later, like if you're smart enough to keep your yap shut or to keep your fingers from typing, sometimes you find out later, again, based on intentions, they didn't mean anything by it. It just came out weird.
Yeah. There's another one, and I don't know how we're doing on time, but I'll quickly talk about the 3 columns of communication.
All right.
The 3 columns of communication, it actually came from a professional experience, that one. But column 1 is venting. Pull a John Mayer, say what you need to say, not to the intended person, for the love of goodness. You can vent. I tell people to always vent in the shower because you're feeling the water hitting your body. You can put music on so no one can listen to you. You can journal using your senses, right? Your senses become fact checkers. I usually say when life gives you stresses, use one of your five senses. When you only leave everything in here, it all sounds true. When you say it out loud, you hear yourself. So that's the first fact checker. If you're typing or writing, there's a sense of touch, the sense of vision. So there are different processes to help identify whether what you're saying or thinking or venting is true or an exaggeration. And when we vent, we tend to not be too in control of our words. We go on tangents. And by the time we notice it, we're so away from where we started. So you have column 1, which is venting. Column 2 is identifying or deciphering the message. And I guide you by asking questions, right? Why do I want this person to receive this message? What's the intention? What purpose will it serve? And what's my expectation in return? Once I've identified, I've deciphered my message, then I go into column 3, which is the best delivery method. Knowing my audience, what is the best delivery method, which could be, it could be like texting, email, verbal, but it could also be how I talk to somebody. I use a lot of analogies when I'm speaking. I have a really good friend that I know not to go back to like past references, because then we go back to that argument. Whereas I have some that when I use a past reference, you're like, oh, now I understand.
Yeah.
So it's how well do I know my audience to know how they understand things best. And if I don't, then I'll use the I statement formula default, which I will just say really quickly because people use it wrong so often and it kills me.
I don't want you to die on my show.
So the I statement formula, I did not create it, but it is a great twist. I feel the emotion when something specific happened and what I would like or prefer in the future. The cheat way of using the I statement is using the words like or that after feel. I feel like you, blah, blah, blah. I feel that you just using the words I feel is not an I statement. It's I feel frustrated when we are having a conversation and I don't feel heard. I'm using passive language as opposed to active. Next time, I would really appreciate if you could just confirm for me that you got the information, and I can confirm for you that you got the information. I will use the you more towards the end in the what we would like in the future, but I try to evade the word you as much as I can, because when I use you, the other person's like, defense mechanism. Let me make sure that what you're accusing me of is actually a thing. And then I stop listening.
Yeah. I feel that. I feel that. Well, you are right about the time. I want to make sure I value yours as well. I've had a lot of fun chatting with you. This has worked out really, really well. I think Noemi hit it on the mark again. Tell the folks at home how they could get a copy of your book, and probably what's the best way to reach you if they need to reach you.
Absolutely. Here is my beautiful book that a friend of mine is the one who actually did the cover, and I was so happy. Andreina, awesome. You can get my book on Amazon. Anyone who wants to get in touch with me, being either to go speak for, speaking engagement, consultation, whatever it is, you can go to my website, www.advocate2create.com, and the 2 is the number 2. We call it A2C for short, so advocate2create.com. Anyone who wants to look at the trainings that I already have on my teaching website is advocate2create.teachable.com. And again, that's the number 2 for Advocate to Create.
Dr. Patricia Timerman Sabrosa.
Barbosa, that's
Barbosa. And what was the last part?
That's Silva. Telling you is long. That's why my students are like, Dr. T, please. I'm like, yep, I get you.
Dr. T. You just need a lot of gold chains. Dr. T.
All right.
All right, folks, this has been Dr. Timerman. I hope you've enjoyed this show and this episode. Like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff I should have said at the beginning and held off saying until now. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.